It started with a laugh. Not hers. His. That kind of laugh you only hear from someone who thinks they've gotten away with something. I was in the hallway, just outside the guest bathroom. They didn't know I was home, or maybe they did. Either way, I didn't speak. I just stood there listening to her moan his name like it had always been his to begin with. The man I used to call my brother, the man who toasted our wedding, the man who helped pick out our son's name. And her voice, it didn't sound guilty, it sounded happy. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to leave, I was going to watch. And when it was time, I'd take everything back. Slowly, starting with him. They thought I was the soft one, the quiet husband, the stay-at-home guy who coached Little League and made pancakes on Saturdays. He was the exciting one, loud, alpha, spoke in movie quotes, took risks. She said I was her peace. He was her fire. But fire dies, and peace builds, learns, records. The first time I saw the messages, I didn't even flinch. Let's meet at the place near the trail again. You know the one. She had a burner app. Classic. He used an old email he thought I'd forgotten we once shared during our college startup. They weren't just sloppy, they were comfortable. That told me everything I needed. This wasn't a mistake, it was a routine. And I was going to become part of it, not to forgive, to finish it. You can tell how much someone loves you by how easily they lie to you. And she was fluent in it. Little things first. Staying late at yoga, helping her sister with the baby, girls' night. The same breath she used to kiss our son goodnight was the one she used to send him nudes from our guest bathroom. I didn't stop her. I logged it, time-stamped, cataloged, backed up in 3 encrypted clouds she'd never find. I tracked their locations through his car's Bluetooth ID. They met at the hiking trail off Maplewood, sometimes in the back of his truck, sometimes in her car, 3 blocks from our house, once in our garage. That one was bold. That one I recorded with audio and thermal. You learn a lot watching someone make love like they have no conscience, especially when they do it on top of a folded blanket your son made in preschool. She laughed that night, and I memorized the sound. He used to call me his ride or die. He said I grounded him, said I was the only person who knew the real him. Maybe I did, because the real him, he was weak. Not just morally, strategically. He left fingerprints on everything. Hotel receipts in a shared digital wallet he forgot I still had access to. Shared photos with GPS data intact. Duplicate passwords. He was messy. I wasn't. The best friend who teaches you to lie will never expect you to be the one recording everything he says. I sat across from him last Sunday, drinking bourbon on his back porch. He told me he was thinking of proposing to his latest real girlfriend. His eyes flicked once. Nervous. I nodded. She seems nice, I said. He smiled, like the coward he was, like he hadn't spent the last 6 months screwing my wife on weekday afternoons while I packed lunches for a child who bore his middle name. I lifted my glass. To loyalty. He clinked it, and I smiled. Because when I burn him down, it won't be fire that does it. It'll be clarity. Everything they did, I wrote down. Not in a notebook, not in a journal, in a ledger. Time, location, detail, cross-reference. I wasn't building a case for divorce. I was building a profile, the kind you use to dismantle a company from the inside out. It's funny, she once told me I was too clinical, too cold when we argued, that I didn't let emotion lead. She said that like it was a flaw, but that same cold is what let me track her affair like an algorithm. And the deeper I logged, the more I understood what they were really made of. Impulses, guilt, selfish timing, craving wrapped in ego. There was no love there, just escape. So I let them keep escaping, let them build the pattern, strengthen it, reinforce it. And then I started placing offers, not obvious ones. Small invitations, favors, a lie here, a white one there. I fed him false information about a stock he was betting on, slid her a fake text from my boss about being gone next weekend. They took the bait without blinking because they weren't just cheaters, they were predictable. And I don't fight fair. I fight quiet, and quiet wins. I told her I was flying out Friday, conference in Seattle, 3 nights. Left her the itinerary, even copied it to the family calendar. She kissed me goodbye at the door, didn't even ask what the conference was about. That's how I knew she already had plans. I watched her from the driveway as she shut the door. The second it clicked shut, she didn't hesitate. Went straight to her phone. I saw the message hit his burner number before I even turned the corner. He's gone. Pick me up at 6. I smiled. Then I drove 3 blocks away, parked, and walked back through the woods behind our property line. I had set up a thermal cam in the attic vent the week before. Audio synced to a live mic embedded in the lamp on my nightstand. She never questioned the new lamp. It matched the decor. So did the lie. By 6:12 p.m., he was in our house. By 6:17, she was in his lap. By 6:20, she was calling him things I'd only heard in movies. And by 6:35, I was recording video from 4 angles. No emotion. No shaking hands. Just observation. Like a scientist watching rats memorize a maze. They ordered takeout, ate on the same couch we'd cuddled on last Thursday. She wore one of my shirts, called it cozy, called him baby, called me boring. At midnight, I cut the feed, I had what I needed, and tomorrow, I'd have more. Because the best part about giving someone a false weekend is watching what they destroy when they think no one's coming home. People lie in patterns, but they confess in echoes, slip-ups, half-said truths, quiet guilt they bury in sarcasm or casual cruelty. You just have to listen. So that's what I did. I wired our bedroom with a playback delay, 30 seconds, not loud, just enough to loop. Just enough that if she was alone in the room, she might hear something familiar, a breath, a word, a name she didn't mean to say out loud, and it worked. That Monday, while folding laundry, she froze, because the speaker in the ceiling whispered his name back at her, once, quietly. She thought she imagined it, laughed, then turned on music. Tuesday, it happened again, but this time it wasn't just his name, it was her voice saying it. And that's when she started looking over her shoulder. I kept the loops subtle, incomplete, echoes, not accusations. Her anxiety would do the rest. By Friday, she asked if we could get the walls checked for mold. She said she'd been having auditory illusions. I kissed her on the forehead, told her stress could do that, told her maybe she needed rest, told her I trusted her, and she looked like she wanted to cry, not from guilt, from fear, because the house had started whispering her secrets back, and it was only going to get louder. It was his birthday soon, not a big one, 39, but the kind of age that makes men like him reflective. So I offered to host. Just something small, I said. Old friends, bourbon, backyard fire pit, the usual. She volunteered to help plan it, like she hadn't spent the last 3 birthdays forgetting mine. He acted surprised, said I didn't have to go to all that trouble. But trouble was the point. I needed everyone in the same place. His girlfriend, my wife, our friends, a room full of memories, and one carefully timed revelation. The invitations were handwritten, the catering was deliberate. The playlist? Even more so. Songs they'd used to reference each other, lyrics she'd quoted in her texts, and the toast I planned to give, let's just say it wasn't about celebrating his life. It was about exposing it. Every glass raised would be a countdown. And the gift, that would come last, wrapped in silence, delivered on screen. The kind of thing that once you see it, you can't unsee. That was what I was really giving him, a night to remember, and a legacy to lose. We waited until dusk. The backyard lights strung overhead, soft amber glow turning faces gold and warm. Everyone was drinking, laughing, even her, especially her. She wore the red dress I once told her I liked best. Maybe she wore it for me. Maybe she wore it for him. Didn't matter, because when I tapped the side of my glass with the silver knife, the sound cut through the laughter like a blade. They turned to me, smiling, expecting a funny story, some heartfelt anecdote, a roast from a best friend. I gave them something else. Tonight isn't just about getting older, I said. It's about reflection. A few nods. Someone clapped. I held up my phone. Sometimes, I continued, reflection shows us who we really are, not the version we perform, but the one that hides behind borrowed smiles and borrowed time. I looked at her, then at him, then at the screen I had set up behind the patio, the one she thought was for childhood photos. One tap. The video began. No warning, no context, just her voice, moaning his name. On our couch, wearing my shirt, laughter died, gasps, a drink shattered on the ground, someone cursed. He stood up. She grabbed his arm. He shook it off. The screen cut to black. I pocketed the phone, held up my glass again. To truth, I said, to loyalty and to consequences. I drank. And they scattered, just like roaches when the light comes on. Happy birthday, brother. She didn't come home that night. He did, but not to his own place. He showed up on my doorstep around midnight, drunk and trembling, with a busted lip and glassy eyes. "Why?" he asked. I didn't answer. "Why would you do this to me?" I tilted my head. "Do what? You ruined my life." "No," I said. "You did that. I just handed you the mirror." He cried. Actually cried. Like a child who'd been caught cheating on a test and thought tears would earn a redo. I handed him a towel for the blood, then closed the door in his face. She came home the next morning, didn't say a word, just walked into the kitchen and sat down. I poured her coffee. She didn't drink it. The silence was heavier than grief. She finally looked up and whispered, "How long have you known?" "Since the day you smiled while calling him baby." Her hands trembled. "Are you going to leave me? I haven't decided yet. But I'm sorry." "No, you're sorry you were caught." She blinked. Tears didn't fall. Not yet. And me? I felt nothing. No anger, no joy, no satisfaction, just completion. The kind that comes when the game ends and all the pieces are exactly where they should be. He lost his girlfriend, she lost the mask, and I had the truth. Wrapped in data and silence and consequences they'd carry forever. Not because I exposed them, but because they did it to themselves. I just wrote the final line. You learn a lot about someone by how they try to rebuild. She baked more, cleaned the house top to bottom, started reading parenting books she used to mock. He deleted his socials, went on a solo camping trip, came back thinner, quieter, ashamed, but shame fades. That's why I built the room. It started with soundproofing, high-density panels hidden beneath old wallpaper in the attic office she never visited. Then came the desk, a simple one, chair, soft lamp, no cameras, just audio, and a playback system. She found the door cracked one evening, wandered in, asked what it was. "Just a project," I said. She nodded, sat, listened. The tape I queued up was subtle, an old voicemail from her mother, praising her for being a good wife. The next night, another, this time her own voice, telling a therapist from years ago that trust was everything to her. By the end of the week, she stopped asking where the recordings came from. She just listened. Some nights she'd cry. Some she'd pace. Once she whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore." I didn't answer. The room wasn't built for answers. It was built for echoes, a place where guilt had nowhere to run. She started sleeping in the guest room. And I slept fine, because healing isn't always about moving on. Sometimes it's about letting someone else hear what you've heard, again and again, until they finally understand what it cost. That room had no sound, but it had everything I needed. Betrayal isolates, but silence, that draws curiosity. After the party, the ones who mattered, the real friends, didn't call right away. They watched, waited, and then, slowly, they came back around. Emily dropped off a pie, said nothing, but gave me a look like she already knew, like she'd always known. Carlos invited me to lunch. No pity, no questions, just bourbon and quiet nods. People pick sides whether they mean to or not. And when truth is no longer a secret, the ones who stay, those are the ones you keep. Her phone stayed mostly silent. One of her sisters texted. She never replied. Even her best friend, the one who'd always defended her, unfollowed both of them. Because some betrayals are contagious, and no one wants to get infected. I didn't gloat, didn't post, didn't respond, but I did listen, because in the silence after destruction, people whisper things they never dared say before. One coworker told me he once caught them holding hands in the parking lot. Another said she always suspected they had unfinished business. But now they said it openly. The story had changed. Because I didn't shout, I just showed, and the truth did the rest. So I poured another drink, sat on the porch, and watched the ones who stayed. Because loyalty, once tested, is louder than betrayal ever was. Our son was 7, too young to know betrayal, old enough to sense tension. He didn't ask why mommy cried at breakfast, or why daddy didn't kiss her goodnight anymore. He just watched, listened, absorbed the quiet like children do, deeply, silently, forever. I didn't poison him against her. I didn't need to. Because truth changes tone, and even a child can hear the difference when someone's voice shifts from love to apology. We kept the routines, school drop-offs, Saturday cartoons, soccer on Sundays. But the glue that held it together was no longer love. It was duty, and that glue doesn't last. One night after brushing his teeth, he asked me, "Dad, are you sad at Mom?" I didn't lie. I said, "No, I'm just done pretending." He nodded like he understood. Then he hugged me tighter than usual. That week, I called the lawyer. Not to fight, to frame. She could stay in the house. I'd move into the condo we'd been renting out. Shared custody, no courtroom. But she'd sign an agreement, one that ensured she wouldn't bring him around friends she couldn't name under oath. She signed. Didn't argue, didn't weep, just stared at the paper like it was a mirror. And I walked away. Not out of anger, but because some victories don't end in applause, they end in understanding. And I'd finally learned revenge doesn't always look like ruin. Sometimes it looks like custody of your child, of your peace, of the truth itself. It wasn't loud, the way she broke. No screaming, no shattered plates, no begging. Just quiet. The kind of quiet you only notice when something's missing, like heat from a fire that burned too long. She started skipping yoga, stopped posting family photos. Even her friends noticed, not all, just who cared enough to call. They said she sounded off. I said nothing. Because collapse isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like unread texts, like missed appointments, like someone forgetting how to laugh without checking who's watching. She took down our wedding photo from the hallway. I didn't ask why. She boxed up the framed ultrasound, hid it in the garage. Still, I said nothing. Because shame doesn't need an audience, it builds in silence. She asked once, just once, if we could try therapy. I looked her in the eyes and asked, "Would you tell them everything?" She didn't answer. Didn't ask again. Weeks passed. Spring came. Flowers bloomed where dead things had been. And every morning, she opened the curtains like light might change the past. But it didn't, because forgiveness without truth is just another lie. And she was tired of lying. So she stayed quiet, and the quiet, it did its job. It folded her in, slowly, permanently, until she wasn't a wife who cheated, just a woman alone with the echo of her own decisions. He moved, out of state, out of sight, into something smaller, quieter. Word was he took a job 2 rungs lower than his last one. Said he wanted peace. But peace doesn't follow you when your name turns cold in every room it enters. Last I heard, he was alone. The girlfriend he'd tried to win back never returned his calls. His social media went dark, and his friends, they faded. Loyalty doesn't last long when it's built on performance. He emailed me once, just one line, "You win." I didn't reply, because it wasn't a game, it was a reckoning. A man who once claimed to be my brother, who laughed at my jokes, who held my son the day he was born, who threw it all away for the thrill of being wanted by someone else's wife. What he became wasn't tragic, it was expected. He was always running from something, a father who left, a failure he never admitted, a mirror he couldn't face. And now he gets to sit with all of it. Not in prison, not on fire, just with himself. And for a man like him, that's the harshest sentence of all. It's different now. The silence, it doesn't sting like it used to. It settles, like dust in a house that's finally stopped shaking. The mornings come easy. I brew my own coffee, black. No second cup poured out of habit. No small talk over burnt toast. The kitchen radio plays jazz now, low, unbothered. My son's laughter still echoes through the walls on weekends. He's adjusted. Kids do. They adapt to love in whatever shape it shows up. And mine, it's honest now. I still see her. At pickups, at recitals, we speak. She's softer, quieter, but not in the way she once accused me of being. Not peaceful, just hollowed. Sometimes I catch her watching me, not long, just long enough to remember something that used to live in us. She never asks for more, and I never offer, because healing isn't reunion, it's release. The friends who stayed still visit. We grill. We talk about everything but what happened, because they don't need the replay, they saw the truth. The man who once called me boring now sits in silence. The woman who once promised forever now avoids her own reflection. And me, I sit with peace. Not because I won, but because I endured. And in that endurance, I became something they never expected. Whole. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and let's hear what you'd have done in this situation. Until next time, take care.